Such a great point because we're sitting here talking through our tech stack, but we're also talking to our process, right? Our SOP for how we do all of these items. We are using the tools that we have to set up a set way that we run the production of this show. And that's so important here for two reasons. You can buy a bunch of tools, they're not going to do the work for you. You still have to do the work and you have to make it happen. Welcome to the Her First podcast, a platform to help online business owners, coaches, and creators gain the confidence needed to build a successful business while creating a sustainable lifestyle balance. We are here to help you prioritize yourself in business and life. I'm Joanna Newton.
And I'm Michelle Puolani. In this podcast, along with the Her First Collective, you can engage in the challenges women face in business, ways to increase your impact or income online, and how to make it all work while launching, scaling, or maintaining. Spoiler, it's not about perfectionism, hustling, or a copy-paste methodology. Let's dive in.
As a business owner, the tools we use are so important. And there's so many options and subscriptions and things that you can use to make your business easier, more efficient, and really scalable all at the same time. And today, Michelle and I are going to talk about all of the tools that we use to produce this podcast. If you're interested in starting a podcast, if you are already started a podcast and are just looking for ways to improve your system, improve the tools that you use, then stay tuned because we're going to be talking through the entire process.
And if you're not sure if a podcast is something that you want to leverage, consider it an alternative traffic source to what you're already doing. So, podcasts, I know it seems like everybody has a podcast and there's a ton out there, but realistically, consistent podcasts are fewer and far between than YouTube channels, social media pages, and other avenues of driving traffic or generating leads. It's a really great, intimate way to be able to connect with your audience, to get them to hear your voice and talk in a long form format in ways that you can't do on traditional social media platforms. So if you haven't yet started a podcast, or if you haven't considered it at this point, it may be something that you want to put into your arsenal when you feel confident on your other platforms. Don't do it when you feel like you're struggling to get on platforms in general, but add it on as an additional way to connect with your audience, speak your mind, and actually hone your content creation skills. Joanna and I have talked about this before, but actually doing the podcast has helped us formulate ideas, solidify concepts, establish more who we are as a personal brand, and then be able to translate that to other pieces of content, other pieces of social media, products, or programs that then better defines how and who we are as a business and the ways in which we're showing up. So there are a lot of benefits to be able to do this. So listen in today as we talk about the tech and how we use these systems to make it efficient, simple, and produce content on a consistent and weekly basis without faltering.
And I love systems. I think ideas are great. Ideas are important. Like doing things is so important to your business. But if you don't have a really great, efficient process system to make it happen, you're not going to do it regularly. And we've been posting this podcast every week for, I think, almost a year now. I have to look at when our first, what was episode 52 today? So, or sorry, 51 today. So it'll be a year next week, I guess, will be our year anniversary. Yay. But we've been doing it consistently. And a lot of that has to do with the tools that we've invested in and use to make this work. And the first thing that I want to talk about is the project management tool we use to track our calendar, our episodes, and our action items. Michelle and I use Monday.com as our project management tool. I love Monday. Like I use Monday in my business, in my agency, in my personal life. I have my own like personal Monday board tracker. And for me, it is a lifesaver. Like, I would not be nearly as efficient as I am if I didn't have Monday, and I would never know what I'm doing. The great thing for me about Monday is I don't have to store in my brain what I need to do every day. I can put it into a project management tool and let it tell me what to do every day. And that's one of the great things about Monday and how we use it is we have our content calendar laid out with each episode that we're going to record, when it will be recorded, and what are each of the steps we each have to take in that editing production process. Who's going to write the outline? Who's going to edit? Who's posting here? Who's cutting the shorts? All of that together. And Michelle and I, we live very far away. We're in different time zones. It makes it really easy for her to be able to do her action items when she's able, for me to do mine when I'm able, but us to still have that connection point and that shared workspace. I don't think this would work nearly as well if we were operating on a spreadsheet or just texting each other, like, hey, what do you want to do? Like, yes, we text each other about what we want to do, but then it goes into Monday, into a system that we can track and have things happen. Michelle was away for 3 weeks, about 3 weeks on a vacation, and we were able to organize everything and keep it flowing even with her gone because we had this system to help us keep track. So, using something to do that is so important. I will say Monday.com is one of the more expensive project management tools out there. I did all of the research. I tried them all. And for me, this is the one that just works the best, makes the most sense for me to keep track of everything. And I really recommend if you're thinking, oh, I don't need a project management tool, you probably do if you're running a business, and you're going to be so much happier with something to help support you in that way.
Monday has been invaluable for us, and I feel like it's the only reason that we've been able to stay consistent, posting every single week for a year, which is a huge accomplishment. There are a lot of podcasts who don't make it past 10 episodes, like a significant number, and we are at episode 52. So I think that's a huge point of celebration for us as her first, for each of us individually, Joanna and myself, and obviously for you as a listener because you're here. Thank you for being here. Having a way to coordinate all of the things that you're doing is very positive, especially if you have team members that you're directing and that you need to accomplish these things. So, we're going to talk about the things that Joanna and I do individually. We could outsource them. We have team members for other things, but at this time, we're taking on the responsibility of the podcast and ensuring that it comes out, is produced, is done in the way that we want it to. And eventually, we will outsource. But even better, when we're ready for that next step, we have systems in place to be able to hand over to them, onboard them really quickly and easily, and have them execute in the way that we have now created an efficient, manageable system. We also know what to expect, right? We know how much time is being invested. We know what we're doing with our activities and our tasks. So it'll be so much easier when we actually bring someone on board. So, whether you use these systems to be able to outsource and invest in team members to support you with this process, or whether you're doing it yourself for right now, either works. Having something like Monday helps you with that project management aspect of it, helps you stay on track, and helps keep you accountable to what it is that you're trying to accomplish and do as you reach your audience, as you get content out, and as you produce. So the next one that we use from a strategic planning perspective is Google Documents. Like both Joanna and I thrive on Google Drive. And I think there's a lot of other tools out there that are much more costly that do similar things, but that don't have the robustness that Google Drive does and isn't as accessible because freaking Google Drive is free, or it's like a workspace for like $6 or $12 a month. I think I pay those on different businesses, kind of depending on what I'm utilizing. So we use Google for our form. Whenever we have a guest or an interview, we have a form that we send to them prior to getting them on the show. And that's within Google, super easy, super user friendly. And I can look back and see all of the information that we need for show notes, for introduction, for getting their consent and participation in participating on the show. And then we use it for show outline. So Joanna and I work collaboratively to plan what it is that we're going to talk about on each episode. We do that simply in Google Docs. We used to be a lot more intensive about it. We used to actually like script out and say, Joanna's going to say this and I'm going to say this and go back and forth. We're a lot more loose about it now because we feel comfortable moving through the process without having those details. But we plan all of our show outlines, and then I do all of our show notes in Google Documents as well. So that tool is super helpful to record all of our written copy and content that we're going to use, that we're going to leverage in producing the show.
Yeah, and we also store all of our short clips. So we'll talk about this later in the episode, but we create short clips from our podcast. We store those in Google Drive as well, so they're easily accessible. Not only does Google Docs give us a really easy way to collaborate on these things, again, we're in different time zones. We work at different times. Michelle's able to start an outline, send it to me, let me give feedback. Like it's very fluid and easy to work with. We also have a record of everything. So when we have Monday mixed with Google Docs, if we want to look back and say, wait, I think we did an episode on that, it would be really easy for us to go find that episode, duplicate it, and create a follow up, a part two, or something like that. So it also gives us a lot of record keeping that we can kind of know what's happening, what was done, what was not done in the past. We can even pull up an old episode. This episode that we're filming right now was originally a different topic. Something happened with the recording, it broke down, right? We lost that episode. We then took that outline because it was stored in Google Docs and linked in Monday and saved in Monday and repurposed it to become now this episode, right? So we were able to have that sort of efficiency because of Monday and Google Docs. The next thing that we use is Squadcast. So Squadcast is the tool that we use to actually record our podcast. The tools and the quality is much higher than Zoom. While Zoom would cost us less money to meet in a Zoom room and do this, Squadcast really benefits us because we're able to get higher quality recordings than Zoom has. It's really easy to bring in guests. There's a lot of benefits and features to using this tool that make the production side easier on the back end for us, which is really, really important to make that back end production process as easy and efficient as possible. And getting high quality recordings in Squadcast is a big, big part of that. It's really user friendly. We had no real issues getting started with it. And we're able to invite our guests to join the Squadcast rooms, and they're able to get in and get a high quality recording and be part of our show from wherever they are in the world.
The audio quality is better. The video quality is better. It is user-friendly, as Joanna mentioned. It also has individual cloud backups. So as you're recording, it's more likely that you'll be able to actually capture what it is that you're recording and not have as many tech glitches. That being said, we have had one or two, but that was more of a user error on our part to not pay attention or heed their warnings. So note to you, just heed warnings. If you see a warning or an error sign come up, just restart or try again. But in any case, the recording process becomes super simple because we can just hop in here. We can have a conversation and dialogue. We see each other's video. We can test the audio. We can hit record for a few moments, which we do at the beginning of every episode. And then we listen back to them. We check the video quality. We check the audio quality in real time. And that's very helpful instead of trying to just guess and say, oh, Zoom, I hit record, but then I go back and something is messed up. The other benefit of Squadcast is that it is actually part of Descript as well. There's an acquisition that happened. I forget who acquired who, but they merged into one. So now for our recording process, we have the same editing software, technically speaking. They function separately, but they work together. So I can take an episode that we've recorded and I can automatically export it into Descript for editing. And it'll help me do a multicam editing based on speaker. So the way that we record from a video perspective, if you're listening to this on any audio podcast recording, we also post to YouTube. So we have a video format that we have as well. And so editing in Descript is really easy for studio sound editing. Even though we use professional mics with our recording, it's still great for studio sound editing, for balancing, etc. It's great for video editing if we have our intro to add in, if we have any slides, like we had a guest who had slides once, I can add in those slides. And it just helps us with the transitions. And I love Descript because it's not just like Adobe where you edit the video. I forget what it's called, but it translates it into a transcript. And so I can edit in the transcript, which is text and copy, as opposed to just seeing the video. So when we're talking, it's really easy for me to say, if I have a sentence that's like, oh no, wait, I want to just cut that out. That wasn't what I wanted to say, and I'm reiterating that. I can highlight the sentence and it'll clip that video. So it's a really beneficial editing tool for us in order to produce this podcast and actually get it out into the world, because we make mistakes and we have changes or we want to move things around. And so Squadcast pairing with Descript is super helpful on that front. They also introduced what they call Underlord, which is essentially their AI tool. They're a very funny company. So they've got all these little like Easter egg comments or things that are quite humorous. But their AI tool actually removed an additional tech piece for us, where we used to use Podium, and I've used other tools before, to basically take our podcast and turn it into a draft of show notes or a draft of what we need to then get it out into content creation or put it out into the world. Descript does that through AI now to be able to give me a summary, show notes, suggested titles, timestamps, anything, that I'm looking for that I just need to extract from the episode, it provides that for us. So it's really great for AI. And then the only additional thing I use is ChatGPT when it comes to keywords. So just kind of pulling that thing out as an additional AI tool, but that's accessible and usable by anyone at a free level. Descript also makes it super easy for me to share that video and that recording with Joanna. So all I do is I copy and paste the published shared link, and then she can access it from her side to take the video and post it to YouTube as I take the audio and post that and schedule it into Buzzsprout with our show notes, respectively.
Such a great point because we're sitting here talking through our tech stack, but we're also talking to our process, right? Our SOP for how we do all of these items. We are using the tools that we have to set up a set way that we run the production of this show. And that's so important here for two reasons. You can buy a bunch of tools, they're not going to do the work for you. You still have to do the work and you have to make it happen. Also, having a process when you have multiple people makes it easier. You just heard Michelle talk through. I share Joanna the link. She then downloads, puts it into YouTube. I put it into Buzzsprout. We don't ever have that conversation. She says, here's the link. And then we do our jobs because we know what happens next and we know our respective roles. What's so great about this is one, right now we're doing it all. That's great. We know what we're doing. We don't have to waste time. We're both very busy. We're business owners. We have 1,000 things going on. We don't have time to sit and hash out who's going to do what, all of that. We can then, in the future, as we grow the podcast, we can delegate those tasks to people. And we could say, okay, here's the process. This is what you do to a single person who can follow that process. Or maybe it is two people, right? Two different jobs. And we can lay out that process for what that is. When you know what happens next and what tools you are using to use it, that's how you get efficient processes. Because, right, Michelle edits, she sends me the links. I know what I'm doing. She knows what she's doing. It's not a conversation.
It's such a great point because your time as a business owner is so incredibly valuable that you have to be efficient and you have to leverage it. And we don't want to be spending time on the post production side of things, but realistically, it's such a small investment on our point. Recording and then editing takes up the most time. But I'm editing based on how I want the show to move forward and what I want to clip out and what I want to keep in. So, that from my perspective is important because it's the finished product. It's what people are hearing and how they're engaging with us and how that final piece of long form content is going to be consumed. But all of those other little steps that we're mentioning and talking about, they're like instant. It is so quick. Like we move through the process in a really, really easy fashion now. And when you can think about all the time that you're getting back, utilizing tech, utilizing systems in the way that supports you, it's invaluable. And then thinking about reallocating your time in better places and higher priority tasks.
The next thing we use in our process is Buzzsprout. And if you've never posted a podcast before and never thought about this, you might not know this, but you need a tool that's going to distribute your show through an RSS feed to all of the podcast platforms out there. We use Buzzsprout to do that, and we did move from another tool into Buzzsprout recently. The setup was super easy, almost instantaneous of like merging. There were a couple things we had to click and do, but we were able to transfer our whole RSS feed from our podcast to Buzzsprout. And Buzzsprout can schedule the podcasts, we post them, we add the title, the show notes, the keywords, all of those things. And then Buzzsprout distributes that to all of the different podcast platforms. Buzzsprout offers a lot of options of where you can post it, provides analytics, all of those things. The other thing that's really nice about Buzzsprout is they kind of automatically make you a little podcast website that has all of your episodes all listed out. You also can get one share link that would then take people to whatever podcast platform they're listening on. So there's a lot of really great features of this tool that make it really user friendly for us. There are a lot of options and lots of different companies that do that. Right now, we're liking Buzzsprout. We might find we like another one and transfer it some other day. But right now, this is really working for us to actually get it out into the world. The other thing we do have to post separately to YouTube because we have a video version on YouTube. And that's something that I take care of. Like Michelle mentioned, I get the link, I download, I get it up and scheduled in YouTube. There's different optimization things too there that I do on the YouTube side. But the other thing that we do is cut shorts from our podcast. Our shows are somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour long. And if you've listened to any episodes of this podcast, you know the importance of short form content and getting those short form clips. Opus Clips is an amazing AI tool that helps me grab a bunch of shorts from each episode in about 30 minutes. I'm able to put in the YouTube link. It chooses those really strong moments. I review them, pick my favorites, make minor edits to those clips, and then get them all scheduled on YouTube. So it's a really fast, easy way to get clips of the podcast to share out in the world that help promote my personal brand, Michelle's personal brand, as well as the podcast itself. And it's just a great way to get that extra content. We have clips on our YouTube channel scheduled out for months at a time because I'm able to spend a half hour, grab clips, get them scheduled and into our system.
And Descript actually does that now too, which Joanna, you and I are going to have to look at to see if it's valuable to try and switch and kind of condense again. I will say, I don't think that the clips that they grab, because I kind of tried playing around with it the other day, is as good as Opus Clips is now, considering the AI. And you have to do more like editing or decision in terms of templates. So it's always worth it as you're using your tech to understand updates and rollouts of new features as well, because it can be really overwhelming to, I've condensed. I'm proud of myself because I have definitely, through the decluttering process, I've condensed my tech stack and everything that I've utilized over the past 5 to 6 years of having a digital business. But I will say that I have not always leveraged each platform to its best abilities. And then I've sought out or searched for an additional piece of tech that solves a particular problem when I could have just leveraged and utilized something that I already had. So it's important to pay attention to those things. It's important to identify what your needs are, what you're looking to accomplish, and how the things that you have right now can be helpful in that process, as well as what are the things that maybe I can request as a feature? Like if I have something that I want to be able to create and my tech stack doesn't do that now, how can I reach out to Descript? How can I reach out to Monday and say, it would be really great if you could do this? It's not going to say it's going to happen immediately. They take those feature requests into account, and it's part of the way that they build out the software in the first place. So you can take an active role and be a participant in what that looks like. So I hope today was helpful to you. If you're starting a podcast, reach out in the DMs for Joanna or I, either for motivation, help, or support, because we can help point you in the right direction. We've been able to strategically launch the podcast, sustain it for a year, and now have these systems in place that, again, save us time, save us effort, save us energy so that we can create the content and get it out into the world with a low barrier to doing so. Your time is incredibly valuable as a business owner, so think about how you're investing it, where you can be more strategic, and what you can either automate or to improve the way in which you're using your time. Thanks for tuning in. Find the link in the show notes to join us in the Her First Collective, a free Facebook group to discuss the podcast, ask questions of our guest experts, and network with a group of female entrepreneurs who value collaboration over competition.
Please subscribe, share, leave a review, and be sure to catch our next episode. What is one thing you can do today to prioritize you in business and life?